Case file number 3627, written by If It's Clean, I Will Lick. Are you wearing your seatbelt? In the early days of our marriage, something extraordinary happened between us. Pure magic as far as I'm concerned. Back then, my wife and I were working opposite shifts, basically ships passing in the night. She'd be getting home at 5 a.m. just as I was stumbling out of bed to head to work. Horrible dynamic. Anyway, my wife is an incredibly sound sleeper. Once she hits that pillow after a long shift, a typhoon wouldn't wake her up. So I'm driving into work one morning, minding my own business on the highway, listening to a podcast about space, an Isaac Arthur episode. I remember every detail of this morning. When my phone rings, it's her. I answer and she doesn't even say hello. She just asks, "Are you wearing your seatbelt?" It was such a random blunt question for 5 in the morning, and I always wear my seatbelt anyways, she knows that. But I just simply said, "Yes." "Okay, good," she said. Then she hung up as abruptly as the question came out. Literally 2 minutes later, traffic in front of me slowed to a halt. The guy behind me clearly didn't see brake lights. He plowed right into the back of my truck. It wasn't a Michael Bay level scene or anything dramatic, just some minor damage, but it was a solid hit. We pulled over, exchanged insurance info, and I went on my way. Not sure how fast he was going. Enough to damage the back, but my car still worked fine and I didn't need to go to the hospital. Still, thinking about my wife calling me to ask me about a seatbelt when 2 minutes later I'm in an accident? Later that evening, when we were both finally home and awake, I started telling her the story. I was like, "Man, it's a good thing you called me when you did." She looked at me like I had 3 heads. She had absolutely no memory of calling me that morning. I even showed her my call log and it was there, at 5 a.m., a 30-second call from her phone. She was dead to the world at that time and doesn't remember a single second of it. I've lived with her for years now, and she's never sleep-talked or sleep-called anyone before or since. It's like some part of her brain knew what was coming and bypassed her conscious mind just to check on me. That's true love. I think that's exactly right though. You say it sort of jokingly, but yeah, this is true love. When you're deeply connected with someone, it doesn't have to be a wife or someone that you love romantically or intimately like that. It could be a close friend or a family member. But when you're deeply connected on that level, emotionally, maybe it is depending on how often you think about them in your mind, that connection deepens. If one of your brains, your subconsciouses, learns of information that is unknowable, the mechanism for that is not clear, but you can be almost on autopilot like Harry Potter and his wand, moving on its own. Your subconscious has a force of its own. It's beyond just you. The subconscious calling you isn't the mystery. The real mystery is just how did your wife pick up on this information of what was going to happen soon after. Now, it wasn't cataclysmic. If she didn't call you, you'd probably still be fine, even if you weren't wearing your seatbelt. Doesn't sound like a high-speed collision, but, I've been in an accident too. This was a while ago. I was with my mom in the passenger seat, and we were at a stop sign. We were rear-ended. I don't know, the other car may have been going 15 miles an hour or something like that. 15, so not fast, but even then, my neck hurt for like a day after. Didn't need any medical attention, but still, it's amazing how much it hurts, even at low speeds, so, yeah. Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 12 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. My favorite one involves a very strong smell. Case file number 3628, written by HVAC and Rum. 12 miles for a girl. When I was a horny teenager, I decided to sneak out to be with a girl I liked. This was a whole undertaking, due in part to it being a 20-kilometer or 12.5 miles or so walk out into some really densely wooded forest. I was 16, but didn't have my license or a car yet. So I left my parents' house early with the excuse that I'd be hanging out with friends. They were always too high to care, so that part was easy enough. Really, the hardest part was a walk and sneaking into her window without her parents catching me, but that was something I was used to doing. On this walk, I'd cross a highway, walk past a winding creek, meet a fork in the road, climb up a huge hill, find myself in the deep forest, hit a midway point at an abandoned farm with the only streetlight in the whole forest, and eventually I'd come to a clearing where her house was the first place on the right. It was mostly a straight shot, albeit a long one. So I got there fine. I don't feel like recounting my debauchery as a teenager, so I'll leave what we got up to all to your imagination. It was 3 a.m., and she was tired and needed rest. I couldn't sleep over for obvious reasons, so I headed out. I was a quarter of the way through the dark expanse of the forest when I heard something that sounded like a scream. I was on edge but going forward, but it just kept getting closer. It went from far away and off to my left to directly behind me a piece. Eventually, it was right next to me, screaming all the while. I was told as a kid to keep your face forward and keep a steady pace when you think something is following you in the forest. To be honest, I was horrified and didn't think in those moments that I could even fathom turning to look at this thing. It just kept screaming that blood-curdling scream directly into my ear. I figured it must have been close to my height or so by how I could feel it right next to me. It started to get farther away until I could only hear it behind me, then back off to my far left. Soon it was silent again. I kept my pace steady until I got to that halfway point, where I decided to book it the rest of the way home after catching my breath a little. I was home at around 6:30 that morning and went straight to bed. A lot of people have told me it was a fox or some type of bird over the years, but I don't think either would have been able to scream in my ear for a few miles. My only real explanation was that it was possibly a hallucination. Case file number 3629, written by Hefe Wiseman 1. Something clocked me. I was renting this old house, built in 1923, back in 2019. I lived there with a good buddy of mine, and for context, I'm not really a ghost believer or anything. I find that stuff interesting to read about, but I've always been a skeptic. I treat supernatural stories mostly like fiction reading, but I do believe a lot of them are real accounts, basically meaning I believe the intent of the people relaying the stories. I just think they're not remembering it right or there's other explanations. But I do have my own edition, and maybe it's the same. There's an explanation I can't think of, or even my own memories are just wrong. It was about 5:30 in the morning. I was jarred awake by this weird sensation, like my comforter was slowly sliding across my chest. Very slowly. I was in a groggy state. Heck, it takes me an hour to wake up with coffee, so just imagine how out of it I am then. I just thought I was shifting in my sleep. But as I woke up more, I realized the comforter wasn't just moving. My entire body was being turned on the mattress. Imagine me, a normal-sized human man. Why the hell did I just type human? Sorry, jigs up, I'm an alien imposter. Lying flat on my back. Now imagine someone grabbing both of my ankles and slowly walking my legs counterclockwise, sliding my body from the 6 o'clock position to the 4 o'clock position. It wasn't a jerky movement, it was smooth and deliberate. I was literally being rotated like a hand on a clock while I just lay there, paralyzed in confusion and terror. When I finally found the courage to try to move, I shot up and fumbled for the light switch on my lamp, which is on the nightstand, while my legs were still being rotated. When the light turned on, my legs dropped down and the room was empty. My roommate was fast asleep in his own room. And to eliminate some obvious things, I have zero history of sleep paralysis, nor would this even qualify. It's sleep paralysis, not sleep rotate your legs. Never hallucinated before. I never even have nightmares. When that light came on, I was in a diagonal across my bed. I never fall asleep that way, and I definitely didn't that night. Was this just a massive muscle spasm that rotated my entire 160-pound body 60 degrees, with no pain or lingering effect? It doesn't feel right. I do think something physically moved me in that 1920s house. Still not exactly a ghost believer, but I do believe there are forces we can't fully explain. And that's cool, as long as they leave me alone. This is a very fun story, even though it's weird and supernatural. I just like the way it was phrased, where it can't be sleep paralysis because your legs were spinning, so you weren't paralyzed. That was sleep spinning your legs. I like that. To me, this just sounds like a prank, a bored spirit messing with you. Something I would do. The one thing I'm thinking of is, if I'm a spirit and I want to prank someone else, how far can I go? I think the one issue is not being able to make it clear that my intentions are not malicious. They're just to mess with you. Could I get a pencil and write it down? There needs to be some mechanism where I can explain my intent, because I just want them to be a little spooked, not terrified. Other than that, yeah, this is something I would do. Just spin around the person, I would want to do it where they don't wake up. So I would spin them around, so maybe they're laying on their stomach, and then they wake up on their stomach, or normally they never do. And they just think, oh, that's weird. I don't sleep on my stomach. How did I get like this? Or maybe like gently float them off the bed onto the ground, and they wake up on the ground, or even like in their closet or somewhere really, really weird like that. Look at me. I am planning out my ghostly prank strategies. Can't wait. Case file number 3630, written by Todd 13 Barry Allen. 3 boys and jokes. One night back in high school, I was out with friends, a completely normal night. The friend who was driving us drove all the time. He knew his way around town perfectly, and so did I, and another friend in the group, because we'd moved to different neighborhoods and schools throughout our lives, and we went places almost every day at some points. That night, at almost midnight, we cruised around the basic neighborhoods, burning time until we had to be home. Suddenly, we were lost. Not just a turn on the wrong street into a path, or a cut into some random alleyway, but lost. We found ourselves on this suburban street that we had no idea existed before this. We recognized none of the houses or street signs or anything, which already didn't even make sense because we knew how to get everywhere and what the entire town looks like. We got to the end of the block thinking maybe we would recognize something, turn the corner, and be on our way. But from then on, it was this completely random neighborhood. The street we stuck to was kind of on a slope, so we were just driving down this little slope. There were no streetlights. There was a very dim lamp on one of the curbs, and a few houses had decorative porch lights and floodlights, but they were of no help. We could only see the sidewalk and the front of the houses when we were cruising right past them. The sky was pitch dark, with only the North Star and a couple stars in the distance. The blocks around the street didn't look familiar at all. The streets, including street names, were completely random. Either streets we'd never heard of or streets with extremely generic names. The area didn't even fit the vibe of the town. It was almost liminal, like it was a design of a non-specific neighboring town, but with the same air as our town. We joked about being lost, but really, we were laughing from being genuinely scared and screwed, not knowing how we were going to get home. You could have told us that we left town by accident, and I would have believed it, even though it's extremely obvious when you leave my town because it requires taking the highway, a very specific, long road leading to towns that are 30 to 60 minutes away, or going on one of the bridges that have multiple signs. And I mean, how can you accidentally cross a bridge? Eventually, as we kept driving, things started to make sense. We saw familiar landmarks, and the street names made sense. We suddenly knew where we were. Multiple times after this happened, 2 of the friends and I, or I alone, went around town in the daytime and nighttime, taking various turns in streets, trying to uncover where we had gotten absolutely lost. I've tried again as an adult, have never found any of the streets or the street lamp or even the same slope. Did we somehow leave town on a little path and somehow didn't know? Case file number 3631, written by Chordui, the mouse that needed space. I had just moved into a new place, flowing through the absolute chaos of boxes and unpacked bags everywhere. Nothing had a proper home yet, if you know what I mean. The first night, my girlfriend points to this faint red glow coming from one of my open bags. I realized I'd left my wireless mouse on, so I dug it out, flipped the switch off, and because I didn't want it getting lost in the move day mess, I placed it right on a middle shelf in the closet. It's eye level, totally clear spot. Okay, cut to a couple days later. I actually need to use my computer, so I go to that shelf. It's empty. I just assume I'm being forgetful because what else could have happened? Someone broke in and stole a PC mouse and nothing else? No. I spent the next hour tearing the place apart. I searched every single bag I owned 3 times. I moved everything on that shelf. It could have accidentally been pushed or nudged behind it, was my thought process. I even recruited my girlfriend to help because I felt like I was losing my mind at this point. She remembers me putting it there 100%. She looks, she finds nothing either. We both kind of shared the look, where you just know you're in a glitch in the matrix situation. We literally said to each other, "It's going to show up exactly where I put it, isn't it?" To be clear, we both love reading about glitches, so we're not unfamiliar with the idea of objects vanishing. But it's an entirely different experience having it happen to you, trust me. Fast forward to today. I'm doing some more unpacking, minding my own business. I glance over at that exact same eye-level shelf, and there it is in the center. Sitting there like it had been there for a century. There was no finding it. It remanifested itself at some point, when outside of either of our vision or observation, as the quantum voodoo would go. Case file number 3632, written by Jesus Christ 13. B-grade driver, A-grade rage. I've been driving for years, and I really don't consider myself a bad driver. I'd say B-grade. I make mistakes every now and then, like anyone else, sure, but I always try to be incredibly careful. Today, I was pulling out of a T-junction. I was being extra cautious because it's a spot where people tend to fly down the road often. I checked my left and right at a minimum of 3 times each way. Like I said, cautious. I was literally staring in the direction of where this car would have come from as I started to pull out. The road was completely 100% clear both ways. The only other vehicle in sight was a car that had pulled out right before me, and they were already a good distance ahead. I even double-checked the car park across from the junction where someone might have pulled out from. Empty pavement there, no sweat. I committed to the turn, and the literal second my car straightened out on the road, there's a car right on my bumper. What? The driver is laying on the horn so hard you'd think I killed his mom. I can see him in my rearview mirror, looking like a raging beast, waving his arms around furiously. Needless to say, I was in a stunned stupor. The frick is going on? I know I was looking right at that stretch of road, and it was clear. I admit I'm human, and I could have missed something, but I know that road in my gut now, and that road was empty when I pulled out. I literally have no explanation for how he got there. I did have this instinct, though, at the time, to blame myself. It had to have been a mistake I made. My brain randomly broke in that split-second moment, and I saw nothing because my brain, for whatever reason, decided not to show me it. Not to get too metaphysical here, but my brain is me, or is there more? Case file number 3633, written by Andrew 303710. A higher power or a really bad episode? This is something I've been struggling to make sense of for a while now, and I honestly don't know who else to talk to about it, so here we go. I was walking near the Capitol building in my home state when something very strange happened. The next thing I remember, I was in Los Angeles, fully aware of my surroundings, walking around, experiencing everything visually and spatially, as if I'd actually been transported there. I definitely wasn't dreaming. There's a sensation in reality where everything is just more vivid and real, you know what I mean? I was actually there, moving around, experiencing the environment, feeling the air, the smells, the sounds, everything. What really freaks me out is that I went through my phone's Photos app to investigate and found a screenshot of a hotel reservation I'd booked in LA for that night. Checked credit card statement and found the charge that I don't remember booking. The timestamp was around 8:40 p.m., right around the same time I was near the Capitol building. I would have never booked that reservation with any intention to actually travel there at that moment, since it would have required flying there. The timing makes no sense. My memory gets fuzzy after that, but the next thing I clearly recall was being back in my home state, but not near the Capitol building, which is where I started. Even stranger is that shortly after that, I randomly ran into an old friend I hadn't had much contact with since he moved out of the state, which was awesome, and we hung out for the rest of the night. His last night in town, he flew in 2 nights before for business from Michigan. So it was crazy to run into him, considering he hadn't lived here for years, and we lost all contact. I've been super busy for the past few years with work, and he had a kid, plus was also busy with his career too. It almost feels like some kind of paranormal event or like a higher power intervened somehow, but I have no idea to what end or how. I've never experienced anything weird like this before or since, and it's been really hard to process. Case file number 3634, written by James Barron, 998. Haunted in a 9 to 5. I've always been the workaholic type, so pulling a late shift in the office while all alone isn't anything new to me. But one night, a few months back, things got really weird. It was well past midnight, almost no noise beyond the normal background of an office, the building's minor settling, and a few PCs still on. I was focused hard on a spreadsheet in the zone of depressingly pointless work when I heard it behind my chair. Someone was quietly humming. And so strangely, it was a lullaby. Very soft, very melodic. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. Hell, even the hair on my arms too, but I couldn't move. Fight or flight, huh? I was stiff as a board for probably just a few seconds, but I tell you, it felt like eternity. I finally managed to break free of this stupid evolutionary spell and turn around. To nothing. The rows of cubicles were dark, the only light coming from my dual monitors and the overhead fluorescents, which chose that exact moment to flicker and buzz, just to perfectly add to this fricked up ambiance. Paid actors. I did the whole, hello, routine, feeling like a cliché in a horror movie, but no one answered. A few minutes of feeling on edge, switching back to the spreadsheet, a different kind of horror, and eventually I convinced myself I had misheard a computer fan or something like that. Back to the grind. The next few days I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to be the haunted office gal. Who does? But fast forward a couple of weeks. I'm in the break room with a coworker, just making small talk about the project load and our moronic supervisor. Where do they find these people? I swear to God. She randomly blurts out, "Hey, do you ever stay here past midnight? Because I did last Tuesday, and I know this will sound weird, but I heard someone humming a lullaby in our section. It was the creepiest thing." I nearly dropped my mug. The fact that she described the exact same sound, not just a noise, but a lullaby too. This wasn't good though. It meant what I heard was real spooky, not just a PC fan. Frick. So this is an actual ghost? Honestly, if there really is a spirit tied to a 9 to 5 office space, I just feel bad for it. I have a few more decades to go. It has forever. For a story that is meant as, horrifying or scary, for a story like this, I feel more sad than scared. We're not meant, this is not political, just more of a commentary on general existence. I don't think we're meant to be working in cubicles in an office. You mentioned that you have a few decades left and how depressing it is. Maybe it's not the environment of a cubicle or working at a computer. I work at a computer. That's my job. I edit and record and all that. And, the mundane, hour-to-hour activity of it isn't exactly fun, but as a result of the work, the product is fulfilling for me. But because you're working for a company and, you're doing spreadsheet work or whatever that might be, data entry, what is a friend's joke about Chandler's job? No one knows what it is. He's a transponder. But the point is that it's not satisfying work because the end result, you don't see anyone appreciate it or interact directly with your work. So because of that, you just don't feel committed to it and satisfied. I mean, that's not wrong. I don't know. I hope the spirit there isn't bored like you are and can be more satisfied. And I hope that you can find something that appeals to your soul. Everyone deserves the opportunity to find that, whatever it might be. Case file number 3635, written by Byte Snap. No record of that address, sir. Me and a mate had gone to a gig in York, England. If you've never been, York is this beautiful ancient city, truly dripping with intrigue and character. Once you get outside the main walls and into the outskirts, the streets turn into this absolute labyrinth of narrow lanes and weird turns. We were young, a bit buzzed from the music and drinks, and we started walking back toward the center. We were not drunk, lightly jazzed as we like to call it, a blend of euphoria from good music and good ale. We got horrendously lost in this damp, sticky English night air. Just as we were about to give up and start looking for a phone box, we turned a corner and saw this tiny, tiny little pub. I'm talking fat people are outlawed there small. It looked like something out of a Dickens novel. Warm yellow light spilling out of a small window, a wooden sign swinging slightly. Though I can't for the life of me remember the name on it, and that missing detail really aggravates me. So we ducked inside just to get our bearings. It wasn't a loud pub, not many patrons, but it felt real. Nothing about it felt off. Until we talked to the bartender. We asked for directions back to the city center, and they pointed us exactly where we needed to go. Friendly enough, but while the pub felt normal, the man we spoke to did not. He was very stiff, emotionless. We followed his directions and made it back to town no problem. The glitch part didn't hit until years later. I've been back to the exact part of town dozens of times. I've walked those same outskirts, checked maps, and even asked some of the local old-timers about the pub in that specific spot. It doesn't freaking exist. Not only is it not there now, it apparently never was. According to every map and any human being in the area, never existed. According to the records and locals, there's never been a licensed premises on that street or anywhere near that corner. Every time I walk past that spot now, it's just a blank brick wall or a residential fence. It's changed a few times over the years. We went inside. We smelled the stale ale. We spoke to an odd human being. But as far as anything objective we can dig up now, we walked into a ghost shell. It all happened about 20 years ago, but the memory is so sharply vivid it feels like it was last week. If we ever get dementia, this will be the last memory to fizzle out. Case file number 3636, written by Army Fragrant, 4526. The smell I had to overcome. Back when I was in college, a little over 20 years ago, I had this daily routine where I'd have to cross a major, busy street to get to the bus stop that took me home. At this specific intersection, there was a pedestrian light, but there was also this fairly creepy underground passage that ran right underneath the asphalt. Nobody ever used that passage. It was secluded, poorly lit, and it constantly smelled like a mix of stale pee and things I'd rather not even think about. You'd avoid it even in broad daylight. So, naturally, I always just waited for the light at the street level. One afternoon, I walked up to the pole, pressed the button, and stood there grinning like an idiot. Had a date tomorrow. Then, out of nowhere, I got this inexplicable urge to take the passage. I felt compelled to, as if my free will had been hijacked. I almost felt possessed. It was a ridiculous and bizarre feeling, like I was a passenger in my own body. I walked away from the button I'd just pressed. I remember heading toward the stairwell, thinking to myself, what the hell am I even doing? This place is disgusting and probably dangerous. I'm going to miss the light, and I'm going to have to breathe in that almost certainly toxic smell for no reason. Next thing I know, a crunch of metal and glass hit my ears. I ran back up the stairs just in time to see a car had jumped the curb and slammed directly into the crossing signal pole, the same spot where I had been standing moments earlier. The driver ended up being okay, which is remarkable, but the pole was completely totaled. If I had stayed there, if I hadn't felt commanded to go into a basement that smelled like a public toilet, I wouldn't have stood a chance. Well, maybe a slim one. I like to think I'd have been able to dodge out of the way with my hidden Spider-Man danger sense, but I'll never know. I've spent years wondering what triggered that urge. Was it a sound in the distance that my brain picked up subconsciously? This is my favorite story because it's a guardian angel story, I think. But it has an extra layer that isn't often reported, where you felt commanded or almost possessed. That is deeper than most guardian angel stories. Maybe it depends on how open the person is to suggestion, and if the guardian angel thinks, well, this person maybe is too skeptical or just in their mind and they wouldn't listen to the suggestion, that they can physically take possession of the body and like move the mass. Your mind's still intact, but they can actually move you out of the way. It's like angelic possession without consent. So I don't know how I feel about that, but it's something interesting to think about. Would you want some entity to be able to take possession of your body temporarily without your consent or really foreknowledge, but only in a way to save you from calamity? I don't know. I think I personally want it limited to just suggestion. I don't like the idea of anyone, even if their intent is pure, taking control of me directly. Yeah. Something to think about, though. Case file number 3637, written by Nico Perelstein. Which one? None of them. I was just a little kid playing alone in the garden on a bleak and gray autumn afternoon. Our lemon tree was planted right next to the swimming pool in the garden, and I was obsessed with trying to knock the lemons down using this long stick. Yep, before video games, this is what we did for fun. The pool had already been sitting through the season, so the water was this nasty, stagnant, dirty color. I know the meme now of, if you know, you know, about the bacteria in there. I must have overextended or slipped, because 1 second I'm reaching to strike a lemon down, and the next I'm submerged. It was scary being under disgusting water with random lemons bobbing around. I didn't know how to swim yet either, which makes me wonder why I was allowed to play near a pool back then. Anyway, through the water and the thrashing, I barely saw a pair of legs walking along the border of the pool. Before I could think, a pair of hands reached down, grabbed me, and hauled me out onto the pad next to the pool. Literally seconds later, the back door flies open and my whole family comes rushing out, shouting expletives. I guess they heard the splash or just realized I wasn't where I was supposed to be. That's one gold star I can give my family. A low risk avoidance, but they paid attention. A couple minutes later, they're wrapping me in towels, checking if I'm okay, and then my dad asks, "Who pulled you out? How did you get out?" My answer was simple. "The uncle." Which one? Was it your uncle name? Was it name? I just kept shaking my head. None of them were there in the little crowd, and I later learned from my dad that none of my uncles were even in the city that day. This memory gives me both chills and a sense of calm. It's very weird to describe. How would you feel if you were saved as a child by a person that by all accounts doesn't exist, or it was a stranger who then vanished instantly? I don't know how to feel or how I'm supposed to feel. Case file number 3638, written by King of the Castle. Did you go through my trash? I have this one friend, and one night had the most vivid, random dream about her. It wasn't even a complex story or anything. It's as simple as it can get, yet it had undeniable knowledge in the dream that she was pregnant. when I woke up, it wasn't like a normal dream that just fades away while you're brushing your teeth, loose facts that fall into oblivion. The details and color of the dream lingered on, latched onto my soul, and I knew I had to tell her about it. I ended up messaging her later that day. Even though I felt like I had to tell her, I still felt kind of like a nutjob saying it. Who messages their friends about the dreams they have about them? But I just told her straight up, "Hey, this is super random, but I had a dream last night that you were pregnant." And I waited a few moments, and then I saw these exciting typing bubbles pop up, and waited. She told me that she actually was pregnant, but she hadn't told a single soul yet. Not her family, not her other friends, nobody. She said that since I technically already knew, she'd just go ahead and confirm it to me first. But she didn't believe me at all that this was a dream. I don't know what she believed. That I climbed through her window, ruffled through her trash to find her pregnancy test strips? It's stupid, but if I was in her shoes, I wouldn't believe my friend dreamed up a fact either. Just not possible. That's conventional knowledge. But my life proves it wrong. I've had several other similar things happen where I just know something before it's possible to know it. Not always from a dream, just instinct. But that one stands out the most because I saw it in the dream. There was no way I could have guessed it based on her behavior or anything we'd talked about, like maybe she didn't drink wine or something because both of us don't drink alcohol. She wasn't showing outwardly at all and only recently had found out herself. So what's the truth? My personal anecdotes can't be dissected by scientists. I don't expect to convert anyone from this experience. All I can do is wonder on a personal level at just how interconnected we all are. Now time for the jokes of the day. My kid hit me with this one today. Why did the coffee call the cops? It was mugged. Yep, exactly. Mug away. Just opened my water bill and my electric bill at the same time. I was shocked. In the morning, the executioner reads his newspaper and eats breakfast. Then he looks at his watch and says to his wife, "All right, it's time to head off." God originally wanted cows to make honey, but they were always moody after making milk. So he went with Plan B. They laughed when I said I wanted to be a comedian. Oh, they're not laughing now. Video up here. YouTube thinks you'll like it. Check it out. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. See you next time.